Good day, guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ademola Badmus. If this is your first time, please do not forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And also, if you're joining this for the first time, please watch the previous videos, the previous playlist on Java and Selenium, so it will be much easier for you to follow through with Java, Selenium, and Cucumber. And it is also important to know that there are some concepts that are previously discussed in the previous videos that I will not be discussing here. So that is why it is important for you to watch the previous video. In this video, we'll be talking about creating our Gherkin syntaxes and how we can do that. So let's get right to it. So we open our IntelliJ and we get cracking. Now, when you want to create your Gherkin file, you have to, by the Java construct, you have to create in a directory. You can create it as a single file, but whichever place you want to create it, it has to be in your test directory in your Maven construct, not in the main. Put it in the test directory. Now, when you want to create in the test directory, you can create a new directory under it. But when you want to create this directory, best practices dictates that you create it as a Maven source directory, so it becomes a resources. This is not to say that if you create it as a normal directory, just an ordinary directory, your code won't work. It will work, but doing it this way shows that you follow the convention and you observe all the rules. You are trying to cross the T's and dot the I's where possible. So I will not change the name. By convention, the name is resources. Not that you cannot change the name, but I will leave it that way as well. So having done this, we can now create the file inside resources. And the file is as a feature extension. What we want to do is actually login. So let's just call it a login.feature. And that's the extension feature. And there you go. It creates that for us. So what this does essentially is it allows us to write the Gherkin syntax. And when we want to write the Gherkin syntax, there are four basic things you would always come in contact with most times. Four basic things. And it's the feature command. Is scenario, the give, okay, 5, given, when, then, pardon me. Now, let us see how this applies and what role each one of these commands play. So we start with feature. Feature is the first thing you will write in your Gherkin file. Why? Because you have to give the feature you are testing a title. Regardless that you've actually named the feature login, you could have a different feature file for. We could have a different feature you are testing under login. Take for instance, using the site that we are testing 4 types of users. So you could decide to actually have a test around a standard user, and you have so many scenarios around testing a standard user, testing the login of a standard user, pardon me. Or you could have a glitch user and have several scenarios around it. So, but in this case, we just want to log in. So we just call the feature user login, user type login. So which means we are testing some user types and now they can log in. So as a user, we could have a description of the feature, or we could decide not to have it at all. So it is not a must you have to put a description, but you could actually describe what your feature is doing. So I could have as a user, I'll remove this later. As a user, I should be able to log in and gain access based on my user permission. So basically, I am describing everything I want to do in this scenario. So now I can go ahead and start creating these test steps. Now, to make more sense of the next thing we want to talk about, the scenario, let me share this with you. This is like an excerpt from a test case that I've done long ago. Now, when you are creating a test case, you have a test description. This can be likened to what you do when you're creating the next step, which is called a scenario. You have to describe the particular test you want to do. So I could say a user should have access as a standard user, right? This is describing what I'm testing, that I should have a normal access as a standard user, right? This is the same thing as, is similar to the test description I have done in my test case. Like, I have to describe the particular test I am doing. Now, let's write the Gherkin syntax itself, the given, the when, and the then, and see what they do. Basically, what you do when you write your given, when, and then are basically the things you do in your test steps. What you use your given, when, and then to do is representing the things you will do in your test steps. Now, what do I mean? Your given will be the first action you will take when you write the test, while when will be the next series of actions that will lead to the expected result. Your then can be your expected result. Basically, that is one way to approach it. The other way to approach it is, for every step you write, you could equally have an expected result for each one of the steps to validate the step. Now, what is the best practice? The best practice is to be able to find balance between creating a detailed test step. What do I mean? If you have each step created and an equal validation for each step, like given I launch the site, then I should be able to see the login page. That means you verified that particular step, right? That makes sense. But imagine if you have a very long test case itself and you have to validate each of those steps, which means you would have doubled all the steps you would have taken. And you would have duplicated efforts in the sense that you would have so many steps to do the same thing. So you have to find a balance. You could take like a series of 3 steps and validate what you've done so far to see that yes, you've made progress. Then do another series of 4 steps, validate. Or you could still try to just do each step, validate it. It's all entirely up to you, but best practice wise, find the balance in between. So like I said, your test steps will be what given, when, and then will do. And given will be your initializing step, what you have to first do. So at times your initializing step might actually be your prerequisite in some cases when you're writing your test cases. But more often than not, your first test, your initializing test, your initializing step would be will be represented with the given syntax. So let us write a sample case, right? So we begin with this. To log in as a standard user, we could say given I launch the Swag Lab app on the web, right? The mobile web. So let's say on the desktop, since it's the desktop thing. So on the desktop, right? So it means that this is the first thing I need to do before I can log in. Now, let's use the actions that we need to take. The next action we need to take. When, that means we are trying to create some actions, then get an expected result. So when I insert the username, when I insert the password, when I click the login button, you see? Then, because after clicking this, I should actually see the log. I should have access to the page, right? So then I should see probably the products page. I should see the products page. Let's say this is the old step that we need. Now, this explains what we are trying to do, right? It makes more sense. But there is something that looks a bit off here. The old expression looks a bit mechanical, not fluid to read. It's not so convenient to read because you have given I launched the Swag Lab app on the desktop, which makes sense. But the next 3 steps, it's a bit like you're trying to create something called tautology in English language, repeating yourself using when. So we should try to reduce that so it looks more readable. Because what we have now is when I insert the username, when I insert the password, when I click this, you keep using it. So we could use another syntax, which I refer to as a chainer. I refer to it as a chainer. We could use that chainer to make the whole reading experience more fluid. So let's try something like that. So I will create another scenario. And this scenario, well, okay, I should have, let's say it's a glitch user this time. I should have abnormal, because the glitch user will be expected to have an abnormal access as a glitch user. So now, in this case, because I want to use chainer, so once I start my action after my starting point, once I start the action, when I insert the username, the next thing I'll follow it with is and. So this is in association with all the other steps I'm taking. All right. So it also applies to given. Let's say the application, for instance, is an application that once I launch the desktop app, I still need to click a login link in order to see the login in order to see the login page, so I can put the username and password. So I can say, given I launched the Swag Lab app on the desktop and I click the login link. So this altogether is my starting point. So you can also chain it. The same thing for then. You can also chain then. Now, how do we mean? We don't need this one here, but it's still part of the example. I'll clean this up when we want to write our step definition. So now let's say for then, because it's a glitch user, right? So in the glitch user, you could see the products page and the images are the same. Let's say, for instance, because let's say that's the problem there. So it means that even for the expected result, I could have series of validations for expected result. Like, yes, this is what I expect. I expect to be able to access the page as a glitch user, and I also expect to see that the products images are the same, instead of being different images based on the products there. So with this, we've been able to successfully write our Gherkin syntaxes. I hope this makes sense to you, and please do not forget to like and subscribe. And in the next video, we'll be writing our step definition. But bear in mind, our step definition will have a bit of a twist, because we will be using the page object modeling style. So which means that our test case itself, our test steps will be, our step definitions will be created, but what would work, the classes and methods that will work in our step definition, will be created inside the main file. For more reference on this page object modeling style, I advise again that you watch the previous videos I've done concerning Java and Selenium. Thank you. Bye bye.